Oh!
No, maybe I won't. I think I will, though.
She's rolling. We had the little timer thing, so that's good. Wow, the format's different now. I don't know if I like that.
It's fine.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Let's move it over this way.
Sure.
You just pull it in. Like that. No, that's fine. Does that work?
Cool. Anyway, welcome back. We figured out the lighting and everything. Sorry we're late. Things come up. We are continuing our series on a Christian's role in public policy, which has been a great look into what does the Bible say about what are we supposed to do as Christians. Today we're gonna how not to necessarily respond politically. This has challenged Zach, Matt, and I quite a bit, and it's been a really big learning experience. I think you'll see that today. Again, this is under TPM Live. TPM stands for Theology of Plain Men. It's based on a blog we started. The link will be in the section below after the video. And today we are talking about responding to welcoming strangers, responding to the refugee crisis, which has been a huge topic both politically and societally the last couple months here. Should I tell a joke?
Sure. Don't you normally do that by now?
I do, but I thought that was a pretty good introduction. But I can tell a joke.
You don't have to.
You don't have to. You can tell it at the end if you want.
Alright, we're late today. Maybe I'll hold my jokes to next week. I have a whole new series of jokes coming. It's gonna be...
Oh, man.
It's gonna be legit. That's all I'm gonna say.
I'm sure you're gonna say huge there.
Oh, no.
Let's move on.
That's a little bit too political. Okay. Matt.
Alright,
what is this refugees crisis? Give us some context here.
So, there's a lot of a lot of things we could talk about here, so we have to narrow it down some. Is that the U.S. has a whole lot of people from a lot of different countries looking to come into the United States as refugees. And with the start of the new presidential administration, there was an immigration ban placed on certain countries for a certain amount of time. So I'm going to read this so that I can't get in trouble. This is from the New York Times. So there's a 90-day bar on people from Iran, Iraq, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, Syria, and Yemen, while banning, so that's all people. It's currently banning all refugees for 120 days and banning Syrian refugees indefinitely.
Okay. Yep.
So that's what it is. It's not a whole necessarily 4-year ban on all people looking to come into the country, all refugees from anywhere, or for how long. I've heard so many things in the past couple months of what it is. There's a lot of confusion around it and a lot of simply rhetoric flying around as to what it is. So that's what we're going off of as the primary thing of what we're talking about, of the governmental pushback against certain refugees coming into this country. What is our response then as Christians to that? That's a big thing we're tackling today. So what are the main arguments then for both sides? We see an argument from the political right and the political left.
Yeah.
What are we actually talking about with that?
Yeah, and I'll take this. When I started thinking about this, it's like, it's between banning people from coming into our country or caring for those who are oppressed, because these people have it very rough. It's the poor, it's weak, it's women, it's children, it's men too. But they're being pushed out of their country by violence. You think of Syria right now, terrible things going on there. And in all different parts of the world, 2 people are coming into this country. And I thought it was very obvious which one was right. Then I started to think about it a little bit more. So it's like between, nationalistic pride and helping others, which one's right? What I realized was actually the left is arguing to save lives, save human lives, and the right is arguing also to save human lives, because they're saying, well, out of the 50,000 refugees that come in, 3 might be terrorists, and those terrorists might take American lives. So by restricting refugees coming into America, we're saving American lives. And as Americans and American politicians, we need to have an America First mentality and protect those who we care about. And that's when I realized this got a little bit more complicated. I understood it from more of a political point of what the president was trying to do was he's trying to save American lives through his mind, in his way. So it is an argument not so clear. It's human life versus human life.
Yeah, but and how do you get there? What's the most effective way to protect human life? Mm-hmm. Assuming that's like a pure, genuine motivation of both sides to protect human life. Is there a more effective way than the other? Should it be all strategy? Should it be all... There's a lot to go into it. So what then is the biggest motivation on both sides?
Yeah, I'm just going to chime in real quick here because I think it's just important to make a quick note. I think at this point we could draw the conclusion that this is a massive gray area, right? I think we can draw the line in the sand right now that we're going to traverse to a gray area. And if you remember all the way back to when we talked about alcohol, it was a while ago. We said that it is often a gray area. So where do you find the I guess quote black and white in the gray area? And Matt just kind of hit on a big kind of buzzword that I kind of want to make sure we stick with tonight, and that's motivation, right? What's the heart? What's the point? Because I think as we dig deeper, that's what's going to uncover the clarity through this subject. And as we go on tonight, that's something I kind of want to hope that we keep ourselves to, is that we're looking at what's the point behind what we're doing, what's the motivation behind what we're doing. Just a little note I think I wanted to make as we kind of get into it here.
No, and that's exactly what we need to talk about, is as a people group, as an American society, what are we motivated by? Are we motivated by political wind, with whatever camp we're in, or are we motivated by something more? And again, the purpose of this whole TPM Live, this whole Facebook thing, is to say we're Christians, and with Christians' role in public policy is we're trying to sift through the layers and say, what is a Christian's role in this? Where does the Bible call us? Let's push aside our political ideas and what we're all about and say, what does the Bible say? And in light of that, what is our motivation as Christians in light of this? And that's what we're going to really tackle over the next 10, 15 minutes. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Cool.
As we were talking about the best way to approach this, we are trying to come from both of the big arguments here and try to look at what's the motivation, and then we realize it kind of comes down to, because we're coming at this from a Christian perspective through that worldview, what are we promised as Christians? As far as how is that affecting our motivation? Because if we both truly want to protect human lives, that's great. That's great, but there's a lot of things that have gone beneath the surface that have gotten you to that point. Everyone wants to say, yes, let's protect human lives. But that doesn't mean that your motivation is genuinely pure through that. And so I think there's a lot below that. Mm-hmm. And so looking at what are we actually promised then as Christians?
Yeah, I even asked that differently. What are we entitled to as Christians?
Sure.
Because that's maybe a little bit more of a powerful word. And that's something that as Americans, I think I feel this. As an American, I'm entitled to opportunity. I'm entitled to safety, general peace within the country. I'm entitled to comfort as I seek that out, and material things. I'm entitled to those things. What are we entitled to as Christians? And I think, we can answer the big ones. We're entitled to joy through Christ, peace through Christ. But then again, what are we not entitled? Are we entitled safety?
No.
No. Are we entitled comfort? No. And that's the thing we're really going to struggle with here for a moment is, should we ban refugees for safety and comfort as Christians? can we do that? Does national security trump trump our role as Christians?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. In fact, I just wanna pull up a little chunk of scripture here from 2 Corinthians. Paul is talking about things he is going through, and this is in context of talking about, really at the end of it, the surpassing worth of the glory of God. But just as he prefaces this, he's talking to... So I'm in 2 Corinthians 4. I'm just going to kind of jump through it a little bit. It's one of my favorite chunks of scripture. I'm just going to kind of chunk through it to pull a little piece out. I really want you guys to go read it, though. It's awesome. So Paul talks about how he's been afflicted in every way, perplexed, persecuted, struck down. Yeah. And he kind of keeps going through this about how he's going through all these trials. And he's talked about that in many other letters as well. You probably have better references of that. But Paul, in fact, if you look at, and you can read this in the book of Acts too, in the early church, not only are they not promised comfort, not only are they not promised safety, they're actually often guaranteed the opposite. And that's actually exactly what always comes their way, was the polar opposite to that. Paul was dang near stoned to death multiple times.
I'm just going to read out his list he gives in 2 Corinthians 12 since we're on it.
Yeah, might as well.
Now, of course, I lost it. Imprisonments, countless beatings, often near death. 5 times I was received at the hands of the Jews, 40 lashings less one. 3 times I was beaten with rods. Once I was stoned. 3 times shipwrecked. A night and a day I was adrift at sea. On frequent journeys, in danger of rivers, robbers, and in danger from my own people. Danger from Gentiles, danger in the city, danger in the wilderness, danger at sea, danger from false brothers, in toil and hardship, through many a sleepless night, in hunger and thirst, and often without food, in cold and exposure, and often apart from other things. There is daily pressure on me of the anxiety from all the churches.
That doesn't sound comfortable. That doesn't sound safe.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think that's just kind of the chord we want to strike right off the gate. If that's the driving motivation for you making any decision, I'm not gonna pull a pin on either one. If for some reason that's your driving motivation for making a decision on any end, as the Christian, biblically, I think we would contend that it cannot. That comfort and safety cannot be our driving motivations for making decisions. Biblically, we can't. I don't think we can get there.
Mm-hmm.
So what do we do with that?
Yeah. Now I'm going to take this one step farther, and then we're going to have to clarify a few things, I believe. In Philippians, the book of Philippians, it's considered one of Paul's happiest letters. He all the time he says, "Rejoice always." Again, I say rejoice. Rejoice in the Lord. And you see this positive feel to the chapter. Yet the context of Philippians is Paul is in prison. He's in a place where he has nothing. And in Philippians 3, he starts out saying, "Finally, brothers, rejoice in the Lord." And then jumping down, he affirms his position is, I am a Hebrew of Hebrews, as to the law a Pharisee, as to zeal a persecutor of the church. I was the guy. As to zeal a persecutor of the church, as to righteousness under the law, blameless. He was found blameless under the law. But whatever gain I had, I counted as lost for the sake of Christ. Indeed, I count everything as lost because of the surpassing worth of knowing Christ Jesus my Lord. For his sake I suffered the loss of all things, and count them as rubbish, in order that I might gain Christ. How was Paul able to say that from a discomfort, not safe, painful situation? How is he able to say, I still yet give up everything, I still count it as lost, it's not worth it? How is he able to do that? And this is something that I looked into a lot. I really had that question. I drove after seeing it, and because it gets at this. When we're fascinated by Christ as Christians, when we're driving after him, when we realize what he does, when we're under that grace, walked into that relationship with faith, it's not a sacrifice. It's smart. So David Platt says, it's not a sacrifice, it's smart. because it's worth it. It's completely worth it. Because next to safety, comfort, wealth, happiness, all those things don't mean anything next to the beauty of knowing Christ as our Savior. So bringing this back to the refugees, we have the opportunity to share this wonderful joy with people who are coming to us from all different parts of the world. And yes, we're going to have to give up safety, comfort, suffer all things. The Bible talks about that. Helping others, being a servant for others. How are we going to join in this? And that is, our motivation as Christians is next to all these things, safety, wealth, happiness, next to the supremacy and the beauty of Christ and knowing Him as our Savior, it's not worth it.
Yeah. I'm going to back that up even farther with a verse out of Hebrews. So this is talking to, again, people in the early church, and these people who are coming, former Jews, believers, they're Jews and former believers of the Jewish religion, now professors of Christianity. And he says, recall the former days after you were enlightened, when you endured a hard struggle with sufferings, sometimes being publicly exposed to reproach and affliction, and sometimes being partners with those who were so treated. For you had compassion on those in prison, and you joyfully accepted the plundering of your property, since you knew that you yourselves had a greater possession and an abiding one. Therefore do not throw away your confidence, which has a great reward. You joyfully accepted the plundering of your property, since you knew that you yourselves had a better possession and an abiding one. How different would we approach this topic if we believed that all this stuff we have here in America was so little compared to the future hope we have? We have a future reward, and one that will last for all of eternity. How willing should we be to sacrifice that and give it to these people? And that might not even be the case. We're talking of the worst case scenario with these people coming in. Why aren't we willing to do that, to give them a chance to know of the eternal reward, the eternal blessing and possession of that coming?
And I want to just hop off that real quick because you're on a roll, and I want to just hop onto it.
I'm going to preach.
I want to get on the train here. So a big thing that I've heard a lot, and a lot of solid Christians who enter into humanitarian work that I've spoken with, who enter into that field of work for the purposes of the gospel. A lot of times motivation I hear is, imagine you go to a place where people have such a strong need for a physical thing. They're literally going to starve to death without nourishment, without food. How much, if you go to that person and you're dressed to the nines, you have plenty, right? They visibly see you have plenty, and all you say to that person is, all you need is Jesus, right? You're right. You're speaking truth. Like, you can share the gospel with them. That's true. How much louder does that gospel sound when you enter into their world with a physical need and bring in that spiritual need? Yeah, you're dying of hunger. Here's food. You want to know what else you're dying from? Sin. Here's Jesus. How much louder does that speak? And I hear that motivation from a lot of people who enter into the humanitarian field. And this is when I introspect towards myself, right? When I look at myself, a lot of times I ask myself, if I was in a country where these people are being persecuted, right? I'm an American talking to these people, and I shared the gospel with them. That Jesus is all you need. He's your lasting comfort, right? But and that Jesus is ultimately who's going to care for you the most. Is that person going to even be able to hear me if they know that I would never actually enter into their world, and that, yeah, sure, here's the Jesus thing, but I don't actually want to come near you. I don't want to enter into your world. Right. And that's when I look at myself. I ask myself that question, like, if I was in their shoes, what would I think? I would think, okay, this person, I don't really want to hear what this person is even saying, because they don't even really care about me, right? If if this Jesus was so good, like, wouldn't they actually show some care for me? I don't know if that made sense. I don't know what you guys think about that.
I've heard that before. You have the holistic approach to ministry. You reach them spiritually as well as physically, emotionally, and all that. So to sum it up,
let me jump in. I just want to say that we're welcoming comments as always, but don't forget that if you disagree or agree or want to make a comment, we probably said something wrong or did something off by now. Let us know. We always appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we'll get into that in a second. Feel free to comment in. But where we've gotten to now is our drive is to share the gospel. Our drive is to make Christ's name known, because that is what motivates us. That's what drives us as Christians. So, in light of that, the refugees coming in offers a chance to share the gospel more and give away safety and comfort and be able to cling to Christ more. So, we are saying, let the refugees in. Now, that sounds like we're swinging into a political left. And, yeah, we might be. But if you're in that group right now, on the liberal side of this, I want to challenge your motivation as well. If our legislation comes in, then it's only a 120-day ban right now, a 90-day ban, depending on what country it is or your status as a refugee or just an immigrant. What if that ban becomes indefinite?
Except for Syria, which it is.
Indefinite across the board. No refugees at all, no immigrants at all, from this list of countries. What do you do? Are you willing to drop the political side and go to them, to bring the gospel to them as our country bans them away? And that's the motivation I have, is as these refugees come, do you think the victory is just in the refugees being able to come here and then you don't have anything to do with their life? Because that's hypocritical. Why would you stand for that and not want to help them? You want to just help them get in but not help them? As a Christian, you can't do that. So yes, we are arguing to let them in, but let them in so that Christ's name can be advanced. Let them in because it is the most caring thing, because these people are hurting, they are oppressed. We are called to fight for the widows, the orphans, the poor. That is what we're called to do, to bring these people to us so that we can latch on more to Christ and give everything up to Him. But that's why I want to challenge this motivation, is what would you do if an indefinite ban comes?
And I'm going to jump in here. This is something that, for those of you familiar with John Piper, he hits this topic really, really well, and I think it's just going to be best to quote him right here. And he says, if it turns out that the U.S. government settles on a refugee policy based on fear and callousness to the most vulnerable people, the gospel-believing church in America is not constrained to embrace that mindset or those fears, or be limited by that action. We march to a different drum. We have a different king. Our citizenship belongs elsewhere. And that's really important. That we'll touch on in a sec. So in response, we should say to the world by our action, if our government fears and excludes you, we will come to you. We will increase our age-long commitment to send and support a steady stream of missionaries and support workers out of America to carry the best news in the world and who care all about suffering, especially eternal suffering, and thus bear witness that we are not governed by fear or hardness of heart, but by Jesus Christ, who became a servant unto death, that all the peoples of might glorify God for His mercy. And so that said a ton of things right there.
Yeah.
But some big points in that. If it comes to this point, will you go? If we're so willing to let them in by a true gospel-centered motivation, you should be willing to then go, if that's the case. Or you should be willing to support people that go, who want to go and reach them with the same good news, to help them hurting where they are. Yes, we are subject to our government, but we're subject to a higher authority as well. And so we appeal to that in this sort of case, and we say that our king is primarily well, our King is solely Jesus Christ in heaven. He is that. That is where our citizenship belongs. And so, if our government fears you, let's go to you. Let's all be willing to do that. And that, I know for me, is very convicting. It's easy for me to say, let them in. It's a lot harder to say, will I go?
Yeah.
I mean, really, that's amazing. And then realizing that it's more, we have to keep the eternal bend on this. It is about, let's go relieve oppression. People in these countries are undergoing things that we literally cannot fathom here. Unbelievable. But will we be able to tell them there's more? There's more hope. Here's why there's hope. Let's relieve the suffering you're in right now, but to a bigger and more lasting peace from that suffering.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. To bring it all together, and we'll go into just a couple more things after that, unless you have more comments. How should we respond to the refugee crisis? We should respond with the same mission, whether the refugees come or not. We preach the gospel. We do not hold to safety, comfort, material possessions, but we give up everything in light of Christ. Jim Elliot, who was a missionary from America, he went down to the Wadoni or Aka Indians in Brazil. I don't know. Don't quote me on that. That's wrong. South America.
South America.
Yep. And in the 50s, and this is a very violent tribe. And one of the things he said, everyone told him not to go because people had been killed. Oil workers had been killed by this tribe, and every outsider was generally killed. And he said in response, "He is no fool to give up that which he cannot hope to keep, to gain that which he cannot lose." And that is the motivation of a Christian. We cannot keep wealth, we cannot keep safety, we cannot keep comfort, but we cannot lose eternal life. We must be willing to give this up in light of Christ. And again, please, 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 if you're a Christian, listen to us, please drop your political stance and ask yourself the question, what is your motivation for your beliefs? Because if it's politics, I'll tell you right now, politics is going to fail you. Legislation is going to fail you. And when it goes the wrong way, what are you going to respond with? Anger, hate, madness,
More legislation.
division, more legislation? Or are you going to respond with giving up everything? Say, what is my motivation behind things? Is it a political agenda? Is it what I think is right? Or is it something else? Is our motivation the idea that God, a holy God, sacrificed himself for us? And that's my plea to myself. Is what is my motivation as I go through these things?
And a clarifying point, we talked about this fairly in depth before going on here. We don't know where we stand as far as Christian pacifism, or what you might call it. There's really good arguments on both sides. So we're not outright saying like every situation it's right for you just to completely give up all heed of protection and safety. There are times where we're put in shepherding roles and protecting roles, and we understand that. So we're not giving you the extreme on one side or the other. We're challenging motivation here. So everything we say can't be taken and applied to everything. Mm-hmm. But what's driving you? Is it fear of the unknown, or is it hope and motivation, realizing that what we've got we cannot lose, and that's something worth giving to other people?
Yeah. We talked about before, like, what if somebody breaks into your house? That idea, and threatens your wife and kids. What do you do? Do you fight back? Do you not? And the truth is, we don't know. We know what we do. We don't know what really the Bible says on that, and we're going to admit that. We're 3 22-year-old guys. We'll continue to admit what we don't know, and if we're wrong, we'll admit it. If you tell us we're wrong, tell us why. Happy to listen to you. I'll tell you this, I'm not going to change because you told me that. I'm going to change because what you said was truth, and I'm going to align my life to truth. So, it's the right thing to do, and that's why I want to change, is I'm motivated by this book, which is truth. So, right now we don't know, like Matt said, about Christian pacifism, but I hope you go back and watch this video in its entirety to see how we address the issue of the refugee crisis.
3 things are eternal, friends: God, His Word, and people. Don't forget that. None of this says, nothing else is. This show, this phone that the show is on, none of it.
What matters then?
What matters?
Eternal or finite?
We'll try to respond to any comments you have after we go off here. Thanks for tuning in.
Later.
See you guys next week.
Have a great night.